Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
To that story. But I think my favorite thing about the book is how it really does flip like typical client appreciation, typical ways that companies gift completely on its head.
Yeah.
With the fact of this isn't about you, the giver. This is about the recipient. If you're truly trying to develop relationship with somebody, I mean, the examples that we always say is like no logos on gifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what that says is if you join a company and the first thing that they give you is here's the logo, backpack, water bottle, whatever, it's like go be a marketing billboard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really like care about you and your family all that much, but like go say good things about me, wear my stuff out there, right? And where John really came from was like people will do that if you
Mm-hmm.
just treat them like a person, you appreciate that relationship personally rather than in this like weird, awkward, I only gift you on Christmas cookies that are branded with our logo way.
Yeah.
And I think that's just something that hasn't necessarily, until John wrote that book, been articulated in a way that could really change people's mind on how they should better appreciate their relationships in business.
Do you remember the story about the attorney that was his girlfriend's dad?
That's how it all started.
Right? And he
Yeah.
goes in and he orders a bunch of paring knives.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that attorney told him, that was like a mentor to him, right? He said, look, he goes, I've figured out that if you take care of the family, everything else takes care of itself.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you mind if I tell you a story?
Yes, please.
So years ago, and this is 3-4 years ago, I was working with one of the fastest growing companies in America, number 183 on the Inc. 5000 list. Okay. In 2021. And I was the person responsible for growth. Right. And we had a contest, and the contest was you bring us a deal, you get X, right? And it was Apple products. Okay. And this one guy brought us a bunch of deals, and we ended up giving him a bunch of Apple products. Well, one of the things that we gave him was a MacBook Pro. It was one of the things that, right? And the following year, he calls me up and he goes, hey, my wife's computer just imploded. And my wife just asked me if you guys are doing the giveaway again. If we could do some deals, are there some deals we could do so that she could get a MacBook Pro? I'm not joking. Like literally, she's like, okay, you need to get a hold of Mike and you need to ask him about MacBook Pros that they're giving away.
Right.
Do you have a new contest? Will they bring the contest back? I mean, she's literally selling for us.
Oh yeah. And that's what John used to tell stories about that all the time.
Yeah.
And that's really why a lot of our gifting items are those things that people are using every day. They're in the center of the home. They're cooking dinner for their family, right?
Yeah.
And it's like every time you pick it up and you think of Mike, like, oh my gosh, husband, wife, have you talked to Mike recently? Right. And now you kind of have a little salesperson in their ear, in their home, which most people can't crack.
Yeah. And if you're married and you're a man and your wife says to you, hey, can you figure out a way, right?
Right.
You're going to go to work figuring out a way.
Right. Yeah.
They're some of the best salespeople on the planet.
Absolutely.
Right? Because, they can change the locks. No, I'm kidding. But you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. And I think too, so much appreciation in business has always been around like, let's take you to dinner. Let's take you to a Yankees game. Let's take you on a 3-day ski trip, right? Hunting trip. And those are really awesome, luxurious experiences. But at the end of the day, what John talks about in the book and what he always stood for was like, ultimately, that's actually taking away time from the thing that I love the most, which is my family.
Right.
So it's kind of doing a disservice to the relationship as a whole, because now my wife or my husband and my kids like don't get as much time with me because I'm giving it more to you.
Right.
Whereas, don't you think they would love you and our business relationship more if they got to spend more time with us?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's definitely different too. Like, we tell businesses all the time, that big entertainment budget that you have, um, like, allocate a little bit more toward gifts, because that's the stuff that's going to last forever, focus on the family, and ultimately mean a lot more in the long run.
So that's why I love the Disneyland thing or the Disney World thing where he put together the whole package for the family, right?
Yeah,
Found out that they liked Disney and that was where they were headed, and he put together a full-on package for them. That's the kind of thing, it enhanced their time together, didn't take them away.
absolutely.
Right? Totally cool. Totally cool. I miss John. I know you do too. But hopefully we're going to honor him in what we do. And I'm super, super excited that you're doing this. Okay. Let's talk for a second about the training program that you all came up with. So that came out last fall, you mentioned, right? Talk
It's
a little.
probably been, yeah, a little bit ago, 2 years almost, maybe a year and a half.
Okay. Okay. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Really where that developed from was that first community that was a little bit of a beta test for us of like, do people want to engage in deeper education with us? Do they look at Giftology and John and our business as kind of this thought leader in the relationship building space? And very,
I
thank
think
you.
of him as a thought leader.
Um, and
That's
yeah,
one of my favorite people, by the way.
very quickly, we realized the answer to that was yes, with that free community that I had built in college. And so we wanted to put more value into that and actually create a system for people, that allows them to operationalize their relationship building. So what the book Giftology has done is give people a little bit of a playbook of, how do I make sure gifting happens at the right time and when, and what exactly do I do, and the whole recipe. um, Building relationships goes beyond just gifting though, and we wanted to give people that whole entire formula. So the training that we developed is focused on one of the most important relationships that we think you can have as a small business owner, service professional, entrepreneur, which is referral partners.
Mhm.
Um, our course is called Referral Partner Transformation. And what that does is sit you down and take you through actually looking at who are the most important relationships to me,
Yeah.
past clients, network that I've built over the years, right? And then walk you through a set of communication systems, appreciation systems that allows you to what we call energize that relationship, operationally. So whether that's like making sure you follow up with a handwritten note after you meet with them, our course gives you those systems, the checklist, the spreadsheets to do that. But really the core of our training is called Rich Relationship Society. Rich is an acronym, something that actually John came up with when we were building this whole thing. And me and my team were like, I don't know about the acronym Rich, and now we love it. So of course he was right, but reciprocal, influential, connected, humble.
Yeah.
Those are the relationships that we want people to be able to build. We all know that those are what our business rise and fall on, but there's not really a community or a training that like focuses just on that. There's a lot of sales trainings out there, but this is a sales relationship training membership that focuses just on that. So that membership has that course that I just mentioned. It has coaching, has a whole community of people that are on this journey with you, and has a little bit of a gifting catalog in there for the gifters that just absolutely love loving on their people in that way.
Can you talk about the coaching for a second? What does that look like?
Yeah, so our amazing partner and friend Brian McCrae, who had run a coaching business inside of his local community, also owned a mortgage business. We kind of took him and all of his knowledge that he's learned over the years in being a complete referral-based business in mortgage, and he's helped come in and jump in as a coach inside of our community. So those are structured calls that he puts on every month, really around different topics, things that he's learned over the years that help you grow your relationship with your referral partners, all the way down to the nitty-gritty of like, how do you better time block so you have more time with the important relationships in your network? And he is just absolutely incredible. We just had our monthly call yesterday, and he has everyone go in the chat and rank the calls, and everyone said 9.5 or 10. So that's a ode to Brian. He's just so awesome.
That's cool. That's really cool. So question for you, what did you cover yesterday in the coaching call?
Yesterday was about a story selling framework. So we always talk about, yeah, there you go. A lot of people know the story selling framework, but how
Kind of
to,
what we do here.
there you go. How to just actually, as you're building these relationships and talking to these referral partners, how to start extracting some of that evidence, testimonials, things like that, to then be able to go out and tell people stories in order to sell your product or service.
That's awesome. I love that. That's so cool.
Brian's favorite thing is study, practice, teach. So he's studied all these things, like the story selling framework, all that. He takes that, he practices it in his own business, and then he teaches it. So
that's awesome. That's so cool. Okay, so let's talk about the new book that's coming out. It's Beyond Giftology, right?
Beyond Giftology.
Talk a little bit about just kind of the 30,000 foot view, what's it all about, and what do we have to look forward to? So we're actually getting back together, you and I, and we're going to go and do an in-depth deep dive, but talk a little bit about sort of the general parts of it.
Yeah. So Giftology, John's first book, and something that a lot of people are familiar with, really focuses heavily on gifting as a strategy, as a relationship system, where Beyond Giftology, this new book that is coming out in March, really takes gifting still as a principle of what can help you fast forward your relationships, but puts a whole lot of other systems around it and focuses on how do you operationalize your word of mouth marketing, and building those referral partnerships in a way that you can like follow and energize the relationship. And a term we always use is snowball up. So you may have 5 really key relationships right now, but who can they introduce you to? And how can you start growing your network and growing those referral partnerships, so that you can have a thriving business that doesn't need ads and SEO and Facebook and Instagram and all these things, but truly just a network of people behind you that are referring you business. So that book focuses heavily on referral strategy, relationship strategy. Like if you are a service-based business professional, small business owner, entrepreneur that relies on word of mouth, that is the book, the playbook for you, has all the systems you need.
That's awesome. So talk about referrals for a second. So obviously Brian had a totally referral based business, that kind of thing, right? And he's coaching for you, right? So talk a little bit about referrals as it relates to Beyond Giftology. And the reason I'm asking is, the average person knows between 300 and 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Most people who are, let's call them employed, right? W-2 employees, that kind of thing, average around 300 to 400 people they know. Self-employed people know 1,000 plus average, right? And so when you're dealing with somebody and you're working with them and you're building a deeper relationship like John teaches in Giftology, you're really taking amazing care of them. And part of why you're doing that is you want to build a deeper relationship with them so that they think of you when they come across somebody that they know that needs your service or your product.
Yeah. Truly where referrals and like referral training, and when people hear the word referrals in their business, most of the time, like the next word is like ask, ask for them, just call and ask and follow up and ask again and send out a survey and ask again for a referral. And where our book and our training really leans is if you are taking care of the relationship appropriately, if you are communicating appropriately, if you have the systems in place to make this like a real strategy and flywheel in your business, you don't need to ask a whole lot.
Yeah.
This is a like value-based partnership that we're trying to have you build based on appreciation, based on what we call demonstrations of value. Like
Mhm.
always be entering into those relationships with like, what can I do for you?
Yeah.
Um, and that law of reciprocity is real and it comes back. So there's definitely tips and tricks and systems that we teach in the book that I think when it comes to referrals, a lot of people are like, I just need to hound my list and pick up the phone. And I pick on real estate agents a little bit
Mhm.
sometimes of like, they're just taught typically to be like, "Hey, do you know anyone who's looking to buy or sell?"
Mhm.
Right? And it's like, "Have you asked how my daughter's first year at UNC Chapel Hill was?"
Yeah.
So some of those communication points are really what we lean into. Something I love is like, if you aren't clear about how you want to be referred, how then could that referral partner go out and talk about you in the
Right.
world, in their network? So we really pair it back to let's get down to the root of like, what is the value in having a referral based business? How do you need to communicate with those referral partners? And then how do you love on them so that they refer you business over and over and over again?
Yeah. You just pour into them, right? Like
Absolutely.
you can ask them about them. Okay. The people they care more about than themselves are their kids and their spouses and what's going on at home and what's the latest and how are your parents, and by the way, the last time I talked to you your mom was sick, how's she doing, right? All those types of things, right? And if you get into those things and you take notes and you keep track, right? But you pour into them and you truly do care about them and you show them you care. Like when we do these podcasts, we've done almost 280 now, right? And nearly every single time after we finish and we stop recording, the person I'm interviewing turns to me and says, "What can I do to help you?"
Right.
Okay. But it's because we're pouring into them, it's because we're adding value to them, right?
Yeah.
Which is a big part of what John taught in Giftology and taught after he finished writing Giftology, right? Like when he was on that stage, he was literally the personification of you figure out a way to connect deeper with people, right? One of the reasons why and I sort of blew over this and I didn't mean to, but one of the reasons why he teaches in Giftology that you don't send scotch to somebody at Christmas, right? Number one, they might be diabetic. Number two, they might be off the wagon, right? Or on the wagon, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like you don't,
You
right?
don't know.
Right.
Yeah, you don't know.
And you're part of the crowd, right? You're part of that crowd that has all that stuff sitting on the conference room table.
Mhm.
Who wants to be part of the crowd? John was never about that, right? He was about, okay, let's get a hold of them in January. Let's get a hold of them in February. Let's talk to them on Groundhog Day. Let's talk to, you know what I'm saying? Like it was always outside of the box type thinking, right? Like John was the kind of guy that would send something to to a friend, to a client's or a referral partner's kid's birthday, right? He'd send something to their kid.
Oh, when I was in college, like the stuff too that, he would find out or someone on the team would find out that I'm about to go into finals. The stuff that would show up at my apartment, my
Yeah.
friends were like, Who do you work for?" Like,
Yeah.
it's incredible. Like just the way that John absolutely emulated that in every relationship in his
Yeah.
life. His family, which he absolutely loved the most and showed up for in incredible ways. His employees, his team, his referral partners, his clients, the people in his network. He wanted to always just go above and beyond for.
Yeah.
And I think something that some people maybe sometimes looked at those Brooks Brothers stories and took away was like, that's awesome, but I don't have the means to be spending $7,000 at Brooks Brothers. And our point in this book, Beyond Giftology, is you don't have to.
Mhm.
Just make sure that when you're on a meeting, like we say ask the extra question. If
Mhm.
they say, "Oh my goodness, like sorry, it's loud in my Zoom background. My kids are home from school." Most people just awesome, keep going with the meeting. How about you how old are your kids?
Mhm.
What are their names, right? And to
Where
your
do they go to
point,
school?
exactly. Write those things down. That's
Mhm.
what makes people feel seen. And then that's what allows you in the future to show up and create an incredible, meaningful moment and add value to that relationship.
And that's the thing that he was always on target about, right? He was always dialed in to how do we, like, something as simple. And this is one of the things that completely won me over. Okay.
Yeah,
Completely won me over. I've owned businesses. I've had people work for me. I've never had their house cleaned.
I know. I'm a lucky girl.
I love this guy. I
I know.
love this guy. You know what I mean? And it was like, and he had such a different way, better, unique way of reaching people and taking care of people, right? So, do you mind if I tell you a real quick story?
No, please. I love this. We could talk all day.
So, I reached out to, I could talk to you for days. I reached out to John after the conference. And one of the things that I did, I just started my podcast. So I was brand new. I only had a few episodes in, and I think there were 4 people that had listened to my podcast worldwide, right? Um, I'm kidding, but but I was just getting started, right? And I really, really wanted really wanted to interview him. And I wanted to get to know him better. That was my biggest thing. I wanted his life story. You know what I mean? And he talked a little bit about it in the book, but we got into some more depth when we got together and did the podcast interview. Um, and I wanted I just really wanted to get to know him better, right? So I reach out to him, and we actually had to reschedule a couple of times, which was no big deal. We
Yeah.
actually did we stepped outside of the normal schedule and all this kind of stuff, did it early, all that kind of thing, right? And I just the it's very hard for me to describe how unbelievably excited I was to be on with him and to have an opportunity to have him tell us his life story, right? And talk about giftology and talk about sort of how he got to where he was, right? And I I found that I I was completely enthralled with I don't know how to explain it. I completely connected with him in a way that I sort of knew I would, but I walked away thinking I want to be this guy's friend forever, right? Like I and it's more because of his heart. It's more because of what he cared about, right? Which was everybody. He cared about everybody, right? He wanted everybody to, and this is a guy that, and I tell people this a lot, but I get on stage in front of a lot of people
Mhm.
and I I get nervous, right? But one of the things that helped me years ago, I was thrust into a speaking thing, and there were a lot of people in the audience, more than I'd ever spoken to before. And I was panicking. I was literally having a panic attack or starting to. And it dawned on me, I had an epiphany. If I cared more about the people in the audience than I did about me and how I looked doing it, everything's going to be fine, right?
Yeah.
That's John. That's
It was.
literally John.
Mhm.
And the impact that he had on me is hard to put into words.
Well, thank
Sorry.
you. No, thank you so much for sharing that. It's been um to have that working relationship with him, and me being young in my career, and also being able to work so closely with somebody who not only has grown a successful business and been a successful speaker and entrepreneur and has impacted so many people, but who has kept the same heart through it
Yeah.
all. um to your point, like he made everybody feel like they were so valued and so appreciated. And that's something that, like, I want to carry on his legacy in that way of, like, if we all just took on that heart a little bit more, the marketplace, the world would be a better place. So we love hearing stories like that, Mike.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. it's been hard. It's been emotional. But we know he's with the Lord. We know that he has left us with something so amazing to carry on, and we're going to continue that mission and that message forward.
What a legacy, you know,
What a
what a
legacy.
legacy.
Yeah.
So I was in the process of trying to get on the schedule with him.
Yeah.
And we were going back and forth. Shirley and I were going back and forth, and we were trying to figure out how to make it work. And I just told her, I said, just tell me when and I'll do it. Right. I want to do this. Right. So I go down to San Diego and I meet with a very good friend of mine who I think the world of. She's one of my favorite people in the world. There's a few of those, but she's one of my favorite. And I sat down with her and I said, hey, do you know John Rulon? She goes, I know John. I used to work with John. You want his cell phone number? Like, no, I'm not calling him on his cell phone, right? She's like, I'll call him. I'll tell him he needs, right? Because she was sitting with me and we were interviewing her for the podcast.
That's funny.
What a tiny world, right? They had worked together at his previous company, right?
That's so crazy.
And she's like,
also, he would have absolutely loved, his thing was FaceTime video message. So if you come out of the blue and FaceTimed him, he'd be
yeah. So it was like, wow, you know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, he had that impact on, I think, everybody that I know that knows him, you know, and a whole bunch of people that I don't know that know him. And he certainly had that impact on me. And I want to honor his memory. I want to honor who he was by continuing to do this. And I'm so unbelievably appreciative that you joined us as our guest on the Mike Litton Experience. This has been an amazing experience, and I can't wait for our next interview.
I know.
I'm so ready to read the book and get into it with you. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Sarah, thank you again.
Thank you, Mike. Seriously, I appreciate it more than you know, and I know our whole team does too. We're so grateful for people like you.
Take care.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.